Welcome to the Entrepreneurial CEO Podcast, where we dive into the real stories behind building and scaling a business. Each episode, we sit down with CEOs, founders, and leaders to uncover hard-won lessons in leadership, systems, and team building. Listen in each week to learn directly from real business leaders who have been in your shoes, had success, made the mistakes, and all of the messiness that comes with building a business. If you're ready to learn from real-world leaders and gain insights you can apply today, you're in the right place. So let's get started. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Anson, thanks so much for being here, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Everybody, today's guest is Anson Sowby, the co-founder and CEO of Battery. They're an agency, Hollywood meets Silicon Valley creative agency that's been named Ad Age Agency of the Year, and powers campaigns for some amazing brands, some amazing campaigns, Netflix, Warner Brothers, and various professional sports teams. Anson started in the Mailroom at Universal Studios. It's pretty interesting. And built his way up through top agencies, now leads an amazing team, an amazing agency, and we're here to learn all about the ups and downs and how they got here. Anson, thanks so much for being here, man.
Awesome to be here. Plenty of downs to talk about, along with the ups.
That always happens. Before we go into all the questions, maybe just tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and about Battery.
Yeah, so you nailed it. I started after I graduated USC Business School. I delivered mail on the Universal Studios backlot, which is probably the coolest place in the world to deliver mail, because I used to ride a mail cart through like Universal Studios, the theme park. So It was definitely the coolest mail job possible. But I got my start in entertainment that way, and then moved into video games, and then eventually made it on the agency side, representing games and a lot of different types of brands.
What did you do? I used to work briefly, sort of tangential or adjacent to video games. What did you do in the video game industry?
Yeah, so I was on the video game publishing side. So when I was delivering mail, one of the departments I used to deliver mail to at Universal was the video games division. Back then, it was it was like 8 people, but they were churning out almost more money than some of the other divisions back then, just because video games and movies and that kind of blend was still a real nascent idea. So I worked on the publishing and marketing side, basically trying to figure out how to turn Universal movies like Fast and the Furious and How the Grinch Stole Christmas and really questionable IP like Woody Woodpecker, and how to turn, we literally read a Woody Woodpecker racing game, did not do very successful. But so I was on the marketing side, then bringing those to market and developing the ad campaigns for Universal games.
Okay. Yeah. So now Battery. So maybe tell the audience, talk about Battery's mission and this Hollywood meets Silicon Valley approach.
Yeah, so we first started Battery when the games industry was at a real transition. It was transitioning from the old model of going to Target and Walmart and buying a physical disc to then what it is now, primarily almost entirely a digital, commerce business. So at that time, when it was physical discs, a lot of games companies, myself included, we were marketing a game like a movie, right? You try to drive as many sales as you can in 6 weeks before Target discounts it and you're in like the bargain bin. Then as it was moving to a digital, daily, transactional piece of entertainment, we saw, all right, instead of marketing it like a movie, you had to market it like a consumer good, like razor blades and toothpaste as an evergreen daily thing. So we saw the industry needed a new model. It's still video games, so still bring like the bombasticness of entertainment, but then mix that with the core principles of how Procter & Gamble and Unilever market daily consumer goods. So we originally started Battery on that, of how do you merge entertainment and traditional consumer packaged goods marketing together. So we started off, like I said, in video games, and then we expanded from there because gamers also drink alcohol and gamers go to sporting events and gamers do 75,000 other things. So we started to leapfrog to like-minded industries while we still, and that's, where we moved in like the Netflixes and the sports, but still, working with a lot of the video game publishers today, like, EA and 2K and Activision.
This is totally off topic, but I'm curious, and you probably have the inside info. The music industry went through such a transformation, maybe not in a positive way, where like when CDs went away, they used to make all their money on CDs. Now I believe they make all their money from touring because it just doesn't exist, right? That's their primary revenue model. Did games go through a similar thing where like people weren't buying the actual games? There's no more DVDs or CDs or discs anymore, and like the revenue model changed?
Yeah, I mean, the way people how they spent their dollars definitely changed. So instead of spending $59.99 on a disc at Target, I'm now spending $59.99 on a downloadable,
Okay. Yeah, I
two
guess you're still
gig
spending the money.
file.
Yeah.
Exactly. Still spending the money, just in a different way. And the games industry figured out how to get people to spend a heck of a lot more money, because now, when you buy that $60 disc, you're done. When you're done playing with that disc, you either play it again or throw it out. But with the new model, you've got monetizable opportunities every day, every week, every month, which equally pisses people off as much as people love that model.
Well, and I have two kids, and the in-app purchases, there's a huge amount of revenue flowing through in-app purchases, which hit my account every day. It's brutal. Yeah, that's smart. Okay. So, you've grown. You went from a startup to now a global brand and a global agency. How did you, I guess I'm curious, we talk about on this show how people go from entrepreneur to CEO. Was there a specific moment that unlocked that level of scale? Like, how did you as a leader have to change your approach?
Yeah. And I mean, that's, even though I've been doing battery for 10 years, that's still a daily struggle that I have, because it's like you start a business in full execution mode, right? Like you're setting up the health plan and you're setting up the QuickBooks, as well as dealing with clients and making your product. And hopefully over time, or if the company is going to grow, you need to put people in place who are actually experts, who actually know how to do those things. And you start to move out of execution mode, into vision mode, into, expand your capabilities and things like that. So, that obviously not that I do our finances anymore, thank God, but, it is, or at least it was difficult for me, to start shedding those and putting the right people in place who actually knew how to do those things, so that the company could grow and I could transform into that next type of a role that the company needed from me. So still definitely a daily struggle to like shed execution mode and move into more vision mode.
So I think a lot of people struggle with letting go. And I've heard like entrepreneurship is an exercise in letting go, right? It's like, building the business, you have to let go and delegate. So you struggle with that. How did you go about it? How did you change and were able to delegate to the team so that you could grow? Because if you don't delegate, you're not going to grow, right?
Yeah. So one thing that really helped. So let's see, that would have been 3 years in. I joined an organization called YPO, the Young Presidents Organization, and that helped me because I started to surround myself with other entrepreneurs or other, CEOs of publicly traded companies and different types of leaders. And I would just, because I was joking that I said the word battery at home to my wife more than I said the names of our two children. And that's when I knew like I had a problem. I talked about it way too much at home. So I needed kind of this forum to I joke that YPO is therapy for CEOs, but I need this forum to exchange ideas and learn from how other, guys and gals did it. And joining YPO was a big help just in terms of saying, oh, okay, here's the mistakes I'm making. Okay, here's what you've done. And because it's a confidential, atmosphere, I was able to learn so much from those other guys. And I think I started saying my children's names at home more than battery, which is a good sign. But I still struggle with that.
That does help. I think that's super valuable. Like we were talking on the pre-show about this, the ups and downs, the mistakes when you're building a business. Like you don't have to, we say it a lot, you don't have to recreate the wheel, right? So if like somebody's already been through what you've been through, why wouldn't you want to learn from them? So it sounds like YPO allowed you to surround yourself with other people who have seen the movie, who have been through it before, where you could be like, here's what I'm going through. Oh, you already went through this. What did you do? Just tell me, because maybe I'll use it. Maybe it wasn't good, but at least I can learn from how you processed and how you went through it. I love that approach. I love that. And whether it's YPO or EO or, at MAP, we have a senior consultant. It's kind of like a fractional executive. It's the same thing, right? It's like, why wouldn't you want to get help from somebody who's been in that seat before? It just helps you along the way. So let's talk about we talked about the good, the bad. Battery, you've grown, you're a successful business. What are some of the challenges you had as you scaled? What are some of the landmines that you did step in? Anything stand out?
Yeah. So as we were early on, we kept asking ourselves, what's the benefit of being, completely independent versus being, part of a larger agency holding company. So in 2019, we sold a stake in Battery to Havas, which is kind of one of the larger, ad agency multinational holding companies. And still to this day, we're not wholly owned by Havas, but we're always still trying to find that balance of what's good about being independent and what's not good about being independent, and then what's good about being part of this large organization and what's not good about it. So we're constantly trying to balance those two. And definitely in the beginning, like when we were independent, look, I guess every entrepreneur is a salesperson, and I think at times I definitely sold us too hard. And I fudged numbers in terms of like how big we were or how much we could actually take on. And I got us in trouble sometimes in terms of not like legally in trouble, but like in trouble of, biting off too much that we could chew. Right. And having to bring on, for example, oh my God, we've got to bring on now a ton of freelancers to be able to serve this. Oh, wait, all these freelancers, it's too expensive. And, we're upside down financially in terms of these projects. And it took me a while of finding that balance of selling the future Battery but being obvious about what we did. And then I know people always say this all the time, but it took me forever to learn the value of no, or the word no in new business. I mean, I was saying yes to everything. I was
just going to ask that. Is it just because you didn't want to say no? Is it that's what it was?
Yeah. I was scared. I was terrified of saying no because I said, well, okay, this is an opportunity. If I say no to this, am I saying no? Am I just being idiotic that I'm saying no to an opportunity that might not ever come back? But yeah, that I wish I would have learned that earlier, just the value of no based on the life cycle that we were in. Still hard for me to say no, but definitely a mistake.
I think it's super hard as an entrepreneur to say no. Now, do you have a partner at Battery or solo?
I do. Yeah. So Phil Kosid is our chief creative officer, and he co-founded with me.
And the two of you together, do you have like the same style, or is it complementary? Where like, we use disc at Map, where you have a D, so D is like dominant, and then the C is like overanalyzing. So when I had a business, myself and my partner, we had very different styles. He was the guy who always wanted to like go after every opportunity, and I was like, dude, pump the brakes. We can't do that. We have. Right. We already have a plan. We've got to get the team. There's no way we can take that on unless we say no to something else. And he just always wanted to like add more. Do you find similar with your team, with your partnership, or are you similar styles?
No. So it's interesting because we came at this from different sides of the table in terms of, client and service provider. So I was previously, like I said, in video games, always on the client side. So managing the budget, hiring the agencies, hiring the vendors. And he had come from the creative ad agency side. So, he was typically on that side that was developing the campaign, creating, producing. So we came at it with two different lenses, and thankfully, it worked more than it didn't. But sometimes there was absolutely conflict, because sometimes I was thinking about it more in the client's eyes because I had been in the client's shoes, and he was thinking about it more on the agency side and what we want to produce. And sometimes that did this, but I'm punching my fist, and other times it came together. But that we fundamentally approached it from two opposite ends, and that absolutely creates friction. But I guess no successful business was ever successful without friction. But that's the primary difference.
I think that's probably
starting
good,
from different ends.
I think that's probably good because you had those two perspectives. And, I think sometimes that conflict and that friction internally is okay, as long as it seems like the outcome is generally positive. You guys have grown and you have a successful business. So I don't know. I think back to the friction with myself and my partner. I hate that thumbs up. It was positive, right? Because you can't chase everything. And so you had to have those healthy debates and those arguments internally to discuss like, hey, what should we be doing? What shouldn't we? And being realistic with the business.
Right.
I think
right.
as long as it's done in a productive way where you're attacking the problem. So let's talk about the future for Battery. If you look at the next 12 months, next 24 months, what do you got? What are the goals for the business, and what might get in the way?
Yeah, so it's very much still cracking the code and expanding with Havas. So our Chicago folks and our Toronto folks sit inside of much larger Havas offices in those cities, which has been a big help to sit next to PR people and finance people and the data people. So we still very much need to crack that code. Then there's something little called AI. I don't know if you've heard of AI these days.
Never heard of it.
That is on everyone's lips in advertising, as it is in a lot of industries, but especially in our industry. So we're very much trying to crack that, and specifically by industry, right? How would we apply AI to video games might be very different than how we apply AI to our banking and financial services clients. So we're definitely starting in games and figuring out, okay, how do we apply it on the creative side? Like, how are we applying Gen AI to make creative, and or how are we applying AI to power us with data insights and better understanding of the audience? But, the industries we work in are definitely between sports and food and financial services and gaming. There's tremendously varying levels of comfort for our clients, and because we're a service-based company, it has to work with it has to make sense to what works for our clients. I would say the industries we work in are very different in terms of how we can apply it, but it's all focused on AI to a certain extent.
Do you find that many of the clients are proactively asking about AI and they want it integrated, or are they more skeptical, or what's the general feeling?
Yeah, it's, you get varying levels of skepticism from the legal teams at the clients, in terms of violating copyrights and violating IP and just everything that goes along with developing a piece, an ad that is made with AI. That word "made" can take a lot of different forms. It's concepted with AI, or the data insights are from AI, or the thing is literally made with an AI video model. It goes back largely to the legal teams, and then obviously consumers have varying levels. If I see a beer ad made with AI, I might have a very different reaction than if I'm a gamer and I see a game ad made with AI, right? And I'm a gamer, I think, okay, wait, is that the game? Is that AI? What I mean? So the community and the end user and the end customer has varying levels of comfort that we try to work through.
Hi, if you're a CEO out there who's struggling with focus for your company, aligning your team, accountability, if you're struggling with execution, connecting the dots from where you're at to where you want to be, we've got a great program for you here at MAP. My name is Michael Cato. I'm the CEO. Most importantly, I was a client for 15 years, sold my company to a public company, and then bought MAP so that we can help other entrepreneurs with this specific problem. We're a 60-year-old company. We've worked with 170,000 individual executives and CEOs. We've worked with 15,000 organizations. This is what we do. Click the link below to learn a little bit more about how people just like you, CEOs, have transformed their business and ultimately transformed their life by running through the MAP system.
You mentioned data analytics. I mean, in my own personal experience, which is, limited, we use it every day, but I'm certainly no expert. It just seems so powerful from an efficiency perspective, right? Instead of having to sit and stare at a spreadsheet or pivot tables for 4 hours, you can pop the data into AI and give it an amazing prompt, and it does the analysis for you. It just seems so much more efficient. So I imagine you'd use it similarly for data collection or analysis or insights, and just use those for production. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It cuts away so many hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's really, whenever you're developing an ad campaign, that's the first thing you're starting with, of what's the insight about the customer, what is the data about the customer, and to all of that research, and to come up with that, crystal clear one sentence insight about the customer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, AI, it's like, thank God for AI. That's a massive help.
It is. The only thing is, and I've seen this, maybe you've seen this, maybe you haven't, AI lies. And so if you ask it certain things, and if you ask, it'll sometimes give you a stat or give you some reference. And if you ask it for, okay, well, where'd you get that? It's like, oh, sorry, I made that up. Or it's like an estimate. It's like, whoa, you have to like tell it only to use factual information or what, credible sources. Like sometimes it just makes shit up. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's why I very much prescribe to the notion that at least today, AI is a tool. Yeah. Right? Not a complete replacement. Now, obviously there are areas, I'm just talking about our workflow, now in the future, will that change? It sure might, but at least today, it's a heck of a powerful tool, but it's a tool in the hands of humans, and you need that human supervision. Like my Tesla won't totally let me drive it myself. I have to put my hands on the steering wheel every 2 minutes in the Tesla. So it's kind of like that.
For sure. You're in California. It's funny. Whenever I go out there and visit, it's amazing how many Teslas there are. It's like every other car is a Tesla. It's like 90% of the cars on the road.
I know. We just drink the Kool-Aid, don't we? We're such sheep.
So batteries expanded. Now you've got offices in Chicago, Toronto, Shanghai. As you've expanded into these different offices, what kind of systems do you have in place to ensure you have the same process, you have consistency and culture too? Like how have you scaled and kept things tight?
Yeah. And I'd say culture is probably the hardest one, right? Yeah. Systems and processes, it's a bit more black and white, and culture is not. So, with culture, there's a bunch of things we do. Like we'll literally start where we've got the battery manual, and it's got our values: be a learn it all, not a know it all. Always take risks. Move fast and break things. We clearly borrow terms from Silicon Valley heroes of ours, but we start with that, and then we do basic things like, for example, there's account executives that are in LA and in Chicago and in Toronto. We always make sure that they're all together on regular Zooms, not doing status or updates, but more just, all right, what tools are you using? How does this work? How does it, these kind of quick regroups between the same functions across multiple offices. And then we'll do a monthly town hall where, over Zoom, where we're sharing work and we're sharing cool stuff. And then something we started to do, and we'll probably scale so much that this will be impossible. But for the last 3 years in a row, we took the entire company to Vegas. And nice. We did 2 days in Vegas. And last year, we actually invited 3 different client teams to come there with us, which is a little scary, right? You're inviting clients to come with you to Vegas. Like, what's someone's going to embarrass themselves on either side. But that was a great time, culturally, to get together with the clients and with people across from the different offices. Obviously, we can only do that once a year. So it's a mixture of all these different levels, man, that the culture, especially because we're in a creative business, it's so important. And obviously, Toronto's going to be a little different than LA. This is going to be different than Chicago. Thank God this world does not need multiple Los Angeleses across for obvious reasons. We value what's unique about those zip codes. And so, finding that flex is key.
Well, that's cool. Okay. You talked about process. So do you guys have an existing formal framework like a MAP or an EOS or scaling up or any of those systems that you use, or do you have your own handbook that you created? How do you guys do that?
Yeah. So I've looked at EOS in the past of how they organize things, and we were influenced by that about 2.5 years ago. But we very much have our process of how it works with clients and how presentations work, and then check-ins, and of course on the finance side, and we're always tweaking it, on the finance side, from the master services agreements to the SOWs to the invoicing process. We have very set processes on paper for functionally how we do what we do.
Okay. And I'm sure that, we have different projects and clients and campaigns and deadlines. You need to ensure things are just, clicking along and, things aren't late. How do you keep a tight control on accountability and those deadlines throughout the organization to make sure things are just operating smoothly? What do you guys use internally?
We have a series of project managers in each office that are really that almost that one throat to choke. Not that I would choke them, but more from the client side. Like that's the hub of
Yeah.
all the spokes that keeps things together. And look, we'll also lean back on our clients to say, all right, we need you to be as specific as possible in your deadlines, in your milestones, in your check-ins. And obviously it's a lot easier with video games where, let's say we're working on a video game is developed in milestones. They know when they're going to be at alpha and beta and first playable, et cetera. And we'll map our process to their development milestones. And it's even similar in banking or butter. So that's really where we start. We need the clients to be as specific as possible in their milestones, and then we'll map our process into theirs.
Okay. Well, you mentioned those project managers being the choke point or the linchpin. We always talk about it at MAP, like the ability of a manager is so critical to the performance of the company and performance of a team. What do you do internally to develop your people? Like, it sounds like you've got great culture and you've got these different rhythms. How do you ensure that when somebody comes in and they're managing a team, that they're performing at a high level? Do you have training internally, or how do you go about it?
Yeah, it's a good question. And sometimes it's worked and sometimes it hasn't. So we absolutely have training. We'll train them, and they'll get up to speed on the type of project, the type of client, the type of workflow. And honestly, we start by asking them to analyze what are we not doing correctly? What are aspects? How would you rebuild this over from scratch? And we learn, it's always trying to build a learning culture. And we learn a heck of a lot when someone brand new comes in who really has the skills, and we say, all right, here's a project we just delivered that took 9 months and we just delivered it a month ago. Do a full analysis of how that went and tell us how it could have gone better. And I think that also hopefully says a lot to the person, that we're not saying, all right, here's the Bible, you must follow and adhere to it, like the letter of the law. But how can we make this Bible better? How can we improve it? So that's like the first step, day one, is how would you have led that project? What would you have done differently? And it's really interesting what you hear.
And what's come of that? Have you had people come with great ideas?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, whether it's on the finance side or on the production side of managing different vendors, because a lot of times when we'll go, let's say, produce a commercial, we're hiring a lot of outside vendors. So we'll hire the director and the editor and the cinematographer and the guys driving the truck with all the mics and cameras in it. So a lot of external folks that you're hiring for these real short periods of time, and they're very expensive. So we developed a whole new way of procuring them and hiring them and paying them and matching that with cash flow based on how a really smart film producer came in and kind of helped us revamp that entire process of how we were selecting and managing and paying those folks, because the numbers add up very quickly. And any of these folks who are all unionized, you're like, when you're going into overtime, I mean, it is just exponentially, the money just goes like this very quickly.
Disappears.
So to be so tight financially is really important.
Okay. Yeah. I've had some experience working with the union folks, and yes, the money disappears. If you could wave a wand and change or optimize or improve one area of the business today, what would it be?
This is going to be boring, but it's very important. It's how we bill clients. We've learned. So in the past, or I should still say still, we have more of a set way of how we bill, but every client is different. And I don't just mean some are net, I mean some are net 45. Some are multinationally publicly traded companies. Some are, part of larger organizations. Some just became independent. And we were applying the same payment method to everyone, irrespective of their size and their company status, which obviously seems obvious, but it was not. Especially when we started working with some smaller clients, we made a lot of mistakes and paid for it financially in terms of not being caught up to our billing. So whenever, a new client comes in, the same way it is on the creative side. It's all about understanding their systems and how they do it. And then we'll a lot of times tweak our payment and billing system accordingly. And we just weren't doing that. We were just, applying the same format and template to every company until, we made a few big mistakes and then we stopped doing that.
Okay. So we talked about learning from others. If there's somebody, a smaller agency listening and he's like, wait, what is he talking about? What should I not be doing? What if he's working with a smaller company, what was the mistake that somebody else should not be making when billing a smaller company that they're working with?
Yeah, we didn't. So one, we didn't do a proper credit check on their company. We didn't properly understand that they were late in paying some vendors. They stiffed some vendors. They completely didn't pay some vendors. We had no idea because we didn't do a proper credit check because you don't do a credit check to Netflix and Warner Brothers, right? Because you assume they got the cash. And we incorrectly assumed that with smaller companies. So one, we didn't understand their credit history. And then number two, because they were a new client. So for example, Netflix, you're never going to get away with billing them a ton up front. You're billing essentially as you're doing the work, of course. And obviously they have, they can have longer payment cycles, but you're billing your bills are tied to your milestones, the work you're delivering to Netflix. With the smaller companies, we realized we can't do it that way because again, it seems obvious. If we've already delivered something and they renege on payment, it's very difficult to go get that payment back. So we were shifting the way and billing much heavier up front. And for those that had an issue, we just said, okay, well then maybe we're just not the right company to work with you guys. Whereas in Netflix, it's pretty difficult to tell them how you're going to bill them. No, they're going to tell us, and we're going to say, are we comfortable or are we not? So we got used to that, and you can't apply that to a startup or a smaller company.
Yeah, the tough part there is like, and I've been in that same situation. It's not that Netflix is going to stiff you per se. It's just like that cash flow. It's like, all right, well, if I have to put out $100,000 and they're not going to pay me for 120 days, you're just dealing with who's holding the rock. Yeah. That's a good tip though. That's a good tip because I've been there too. You have to do those credit checks. That's super important. So you're not left holding the bag and you get stiffed on the bill. Okay. We always ask people that come on the show, is there something unique or interesting or valuable that you do internally at Battery that perhaps somebody else listening might be able to take back and adopt into their business? Process, system, habit, culture, ritual, whatever.
That's interesting. I definitely say, even though I know it's not unique to get everyone together in an annual offsite, but what I think has been unique about our Vegas thing is that now we've started to bring customers, right? So we'll bring customers as well as internal employees. We'll have the day for employees and then the couple days for customers. And for example, our finance people don't interact as much with our daily clients as an account person would or a creative person would. And it's so interesting for our finance people to hear and understand from the client. And the clients also love it that they're then interacting with other different types of people at Battery than they just normally wouldn't. And it just creates this amazing bonding, but also learning opportunity. So I think that's a big, again, corporate offsites are nothing new, but by inviting the customers, we've seen just a huge change on both sides in terms of how we interact and get together. And then just kind of a fun thing, maybe because it's in the water in LA, we have regular movie nights for all of our offices. Okay. And we started by requiring people in Chicago, you can only watch movies that were filmed in Chicago or based in Chicago. So there was like a lot of John Hughes, 16 Candles of it. And same with LA and same with Toronto. So we try to just do fun, little things like that. And, also pulling in things we learn from Silicon Valley, like we provide lunch to people, once a week in each of the offices. I'm sure Silicon Valley does it 7 days a week, but we don't have Meta money. Yeah. So, just those little fun culture things. But the offsite has made a big difference.
Well, it's not unique, but not everybody does it. So I think it's still valuable. And I would imagine not many people do it with clients. That's interesting. When you do your offsites, how do you structure them? Do you do like, is it just a get together to have fun? Or are you actually doing like learning, different course? Like, what are you doing during the offsite?
Yeah, it's learning during the day and then having fun at night. So the
Okay.
first day is just battery. So we'll do a State of the Union, right? Here's the things that went well this year. Here's what we learned. Here's our goals for next year. Sometimes, like 2 years ago, we had the Mirroring group, which is essentially new biz instruction for ad agencies. So we had consultants from the Mirroring group came in for 5 hours and kind of taught everyone some really tricks of the trade in terms of driving new business of current clients. So this is kind of learning thing. And then everyone goes out to dinner the first night and hopefully doesn't stay out too late. And then the next 3 days, we brought in 3 separate clients. So there were about 4 different people from each client brand that came. And then we had like a 3-hour session. And obviously we did this with the client beforehand, where the client gave us a brief, or here's something we're trying to solve. And then for those 3 hours, we all split into different groups. There's kind of one client per each, or actually not, because there was a lot more than 3 or 4 groups, but we try to put at least one client with each group. And then we're not creatively brainstorming together, because that's very difficult, but more just meeting and trying to solve that client's needs, or that brief, that ask. And then we come together at the end of the 4 hours and share what we do, and then we go out to dinner with the clients that night, and then rinse and repeat for the next day. And then obviously not everyone can be in Vegas for a full 3 days, so some people kind of have to come in and come out based on projects and what's happening.
I have a strict 1 to 2 night maximum in Vegas. I can't handle through 3 days. Just like, that's just too much Vegas for me. too old, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, we do. I was there, our offsite, for 4 nights last year, because clients came in early on the first night, and I made it through, but I had to give myself, I had to adhere to a strict water diet the first couple of nights.
Well, if you're only on water, it's okay. But I get Vegas has changed too. Years ago, it was like there weren't so many restaurants and the sports teams and the shows. It was really just like drinking and gambling. And now it's changed so much that there's so much built up in that city. But it's still painful. Well, cool, man. This has been great. Thank you so much for your time. Before we wrap, where can folks go to learn more about Battery or to connect with you?
Yeah, so our website's probably the best place, batteryagency.com, and then find me on LinkedIn.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. We appreciate it. Some awesome nuggets in there for the community. And thank you so much, everybody, for listening, and we will see you next time.